Hello, welcome to Outdoors in Scotland. My name's John Burns, and this is my little podcast for folk who like the outdoors in Scotland, or anywhere else for that matter, really. My guest today I brought along to talk about the effect of the internet on the sort of outdoors culture and the way we all relate to each other. I mean, you're listening to this show presumably over the internet, and it as the internet seems to have reached out and changed every part of our life. And I started climbing probably about about 40 years ago now. Things were very different then. So my guest today is Dan Bailey, who's the editor of UK Hill Walking, which is I'll let him say what it is. I bet he probably knows better than me. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Hello, John. I'm very well. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Ah, yeah, nice. It's a real
It's been a
pleasure.
long time. I know we've been sort of playing telephone tennis to
Yeah,
try and
we've sort of
line
been
up
avoiding
our
each other for quite a
diaries,
while,
so
really.
which is ironic because we only live about half an hour
I know.
apart.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Tell me, how did you become involved? I mean, with UK Hill Walking. I mean, I think you were kind of involved from the very early days, really.
That's right. Yes, I was already a freelance outdoor writer in my sort of younger days. Pretty much as the internet was coming in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s is kind of when I started cutting my teeth writing about climbing in the hills. So as the internet gradually became this thing that suddenly dominates everything, I was getting into the whole outdoor writing scene. Since the sort of the rise of the outdoors on the internet kind of mirrors my own sort of career, but my working life. So I've seen it from its very early days, really. So very early on, I was an avid user of UK hill walking. Sorry,
Right.
UK climbing, which was the sort of the original climbing site, and that gradually became sort of more professional and sort of a
Yeah.
branch of the media. I
Well, that
started
was it.
writing for UK climbing, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
from that, UK hill walking was born several years
I see.
after.
There will be people out there who don't know what UK camping and UK hill walking is. Can you maybe just describe what it is and what it does for us?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in the old days, we always used to describe it as an online magazine. I mean, there are still print magazines in the world, but it doesn't really hit home quite the same way anymore because websites like UKC and UKH have taken over a lot of the job that print magazines used to do. So, Hill Walking, for instance, is free to use. It's an online resource that looks and reads very much like an outdoor magazine. We've got articles, interviews, gear reviews, route information, but there's a lot more user interaction than you might get with a sort of top down.
Sure. Is it more of a community than a magazine now, really?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So ideally, at least, we'd like to think it is because we've got forums that have sort of grown up with the site. So there are people on the site who only go on the forums. Really, there are others who barely know they exist. So it's a big sort of ecosystem of users. But there's user galleries, so people can upload their own photos. They can talk to each other about photos, about routes, about gear,
Hmm.
about politics, even on the forums.
Sure.
There are logbooks, so you can go and tick all your summits or all the rock climbs you've done or whatever. So it's sort of interactive in a way. And I'd like to think we're responsive as well. So if someone comments in the forums about an article or asks us a question, we can address that within editorial or in the
Oh, right.
forums in
Yeah.
real time.
Yeah.
I'd like to think it's a community, although it's obviously run by a team of sort of full-time
Sure.
employees. It's sort of the idea is that it's both UK climbing and UK hill walking sort of sites for everyone, for all users.
I mean, it's a when I began climbing, oh God, 70s maybe. The only way for me to do that was to go along to a pub somewhere where you find a group of bearded men and sometimes women weren't bearded, sitting in a corner and sort of introduce yourself to them and hope that they would deign to give you information. But that was quite really made it very difficult to break in and quite narrow in some ways. Do you
Mhm.
think that the forums like UK Hill Walking, UK Climbing, and the internet in general has kind of opened up the outdoors?
I'd say very much so. I mean, you still get a gatekeeper mentality among some people, and I think there are some user groups in society who still find their voice isn't reflected in the outdoor experience. They're not sort of
Sure.
represented in the
Yeah.
outdoors. to the same way. So there are sort of invisible barriers still, but it's not a mystery club. you know,
No,
because information is out there. Information and inspiration is out there on social media, on websites like ours. It's not the case that you have to go and buy a magazine or you have to learn a secret handshake or whatever. It's there on your smartphone or on your computer, a click of a button.
yeah,
So yes, I think it has democratized the outdoors for good and ill. I'm sure we'll get onto to both at some point
sure.
today.
I mean, I think I can certainly speak from my experience of the sort of bothy world, which is a very much a niche part of the outdoors, really, I suppose, in a way. But I think there's been quite a lot of controversy over the role of the internet regarding bothies, and there's certainly because it's bringing a lot more people in, really. And it used to be that you'd meet someone in a bothy and they'd tell you about other bothies, and this was
Mhm.
almost kept secret amongst this tiny little community that was very self-selected. But I think
Yeah.
that the internet has really blown that wide open. There's no going back to the way it was. Are you seeing things like that in terms of the way that the internet has perhaps opened the doors to certain areas of the outdoors?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Bothies is a great example. You see all these sort of Bothy groups, Facebook groups, and stuff like that. And you don't have to be an MBA member. You don't have
No.
to have put in any sort of apprenticeship anymore. This scene is sort of open. Now I can see why there's problems with that. Certainly with
Yeah.
Bothies, and I think more generally with access to the hills,
Mm.
just the sheer numbers who sort of suddenly appear. It
Yeah.
seems say posts on Instagram sort of gain this sort of viral life, don't they? And so
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
particular location can get quite hammered. Look at the fairy pools on Skye or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Popular camp spots or whatever. There are areas that have never been busier, and I guess the busy bothies are a good example of that as well. Although there's bound to
Yeah.
be some fewer ones still knocking about. I think overall it's a good thing. I mean, my job is to inspire people to want to go into the outdoors and to help inform them about how to best
Sure.
do that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say the internet has been an unalloyed success in terms of but there are downsides. But overall, I think it's to be welcomed that the scene is sort of wide open in a way that it probably wasn't before.
That's right. I mean, I think things like one of the things that UK climbing certainly I think is quite helpful for if you're looking for if you like technical information on the kind of gear to use, what might be useful on a particular climb, or indeed how to set things up safely. Is that the kind of information that you think is really helpful to folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Not to wish to beat our own drum too obviously. I
Yeah.
think there are certain sources of information which are probably more trustworthy than others. So a
What's
random
that?
off Facebook telling you how to belay, I wouldn't go with that. But a sort of curated experience like UK climbing or UK hill walking, where there's people who know what they're talking about behind the scenes, actually producing the content. I think that's a really good source of information and also a sort of gateway to wider sources of information, for instance, training courses or whatever. We kind of exist to point people in the right directions and to
I
make
mean,
sure that they're
that's
sort of
quite
going to the hills
important.
or the crags informed, as fully informed as we can.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're a climber yourself, but I think that's quite an important point. Unfortunately, the internet is full of information. There's a lot of misinformation out there as well,
Yes.
which
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
come
And
across myself.
it's not just people these days, of course. It's awash with AI slop and there'll be all sorts of bot produced, quite sensible looking stuff out there on the internet, which
That's right.
is just sort of it's garbage.
That's right. That's right. I fell prey to that myself actually, because someone on Facebook told me how easy it was to haul in coal up a hill to a
Oh
bothy,
right.
and I should do that. You see, so I had a little cart, so I put the coal in the cart, and I discovered
Hmm.
it's not easy at all. I think whoever t told me that had never done it. Just thought this is a good idea.
Were they
But
even a
did
real
you
human?
see?
That's the question these days.
I think it's an important point what you said about it being curated. You see on your websites. So do you monitor what's on your sites? And if you see information that you think is a bit dodgy, for want of a better word,
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, nothing gets published as an article or none of the key editorial gets published without going through us. you know, we
right, okay,
we actually have to press the button to make it live. So
okay,
we either commission or produce in-house every piece of editorial on the site. So
right,
in that sense, we're a quality control. The forums are quite heavily moderated as well. So if there's abusive behaviour, if there's dodgy advice, whatever, as long as we're made aware of it, and we sort of lurk around and make sure we're sort of
Sure.
checking in on
Yeah,
threads on
yeah.
the forums, but we can't be there 24 hours a day. So
No.
but the sort of the wider community on the forums are very good at flagging spam or political extremism or bots, which happens a lot. We try to keep quite a close lid on what's produced in the forums, just because otherwise it becomes unmanageable for users. We don't want people to have to sift through the bullshit to get to
No.
the real
No.
stuff, you know.
No. And I mean, obviously, climbing, is an inherently dangerous sport. So you do want any information on it to be as accurate as it can be, really. That's
Yeah,
quite an
yeah,
important role.
absolutely.
I don't know. Have you seen any examples? I think if you widen it out from beyond, if we're looking at the role of the internet, I think one of the things the internet's been really good at has been a sort of a way that you can access information about what would be relatively narrow pursuits. For example, I mean, mountain biking is quite a big thing these days, but it did start out
Mm.
that way. There seems to be hundreds of different kind of bikes these days. When I grew up, there was ladies and gents. Now there's fat bikes, thin bikes, electric
Yeah,
bikes,
yeah,
mountain bikes,
every single.
hybrids, you name
Yeah.
it. But it has allowed that kind of thing to flourish. Is that fair?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. And if you're thinking about gear, obviously it makes it an awful lot easier to go shopping. You know, I live in the Highlands, as do you, and I don't have outdoor shops on my doorstep. So if I want something, I can click a button and
Yeah,
buy it online. But I'd always urge people to go into a real shop where they have access to one. But it's easier said than done. If you live
yes,
in
it
many places,
is.
you've
It
you've
is.
got trespass or nothing.
Well, I think that again, that's important because, as you say, you can go into a lot of outdoor shops these days. I think there will be some expert advice available in outdoor shops these days, but
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of them are basically, in a way, supermarkets for outdoor gear. The quality of advice I've sort of overheard being given is sometimes
It
questionable.
depends which shop you go to. There are
Yeah,
still reputable sort of bricks and mortar shops out there,
yeah,
certainly
there
in,
are.
say, in
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the sort of the key outdoor centres like Keswick or Ambleside or Applecurrig or whatever. I guess one worry with the internet and the easy availability of gear is that there is no real quality control on what you're getting. So you could go on a popular retail site named after a big South American river, and you could buy yourself something that looked like PPE, rated safety equipment that will keep
Yeah,
you
yeah.
alive if you fall off a crack. And it's not necessarily got a provenance or a sort of an accreditation chain that you'd expect if you went into a real climbing shop and bought yourself carabiners or a rope or whatever. So online you can buy stuff that is literally dangerous.
Right, right. Okay, well, that's worth knowing. That's worth knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are concerns, I think, with things like the ready availability of just random crap, both in terms of duff information and in terms
Yes.
of actually dodgy gear.
Yeah.
If you buy a pair of boots and they fall apart on you because you bought some cheap generic stuff, well, that's going to be inconvenient. But if you
Bristle
buy a
having,
rope
yeah.
and then attempt to climb with it, and it's not actually produced to the same safety standards as official climbing gear, then the consequences could be obvious.
Yeah, I mean, again, I suppose online communities that like UK climbing seem to me in many ways to have kind of replaced the sort of the back of the bar sort of little climbing communities that you used to go to. People did make I mean, clubs were a great
Mm.
way of getting into climbing, but they're far less significant now because obviously there are courses you can go on that didn't exist years ago.
Yeah.
There's information you can get off the internet. You could quite easily be, I suppose, seduced by the glamour of some of the advertising that you see. I often find it quite interesting that you see people out in the pouring rain in cagoules, and they all appear to be delighted. I've never actually seen people that happy with their waterproofs, to be honest. But
Mm.
you're going to get different opinions, I guess. But through that, you might at least gain some insight into what's useful and what isn't.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, in the old days, you would have this sort of unofficial apprenticeship
Yeah,
structure, wouldn't you? You'd either have a more experienced pal, or you'd as you say, sort of enter it through a club, and therefore you'd have the sort of you'd be getting information and learning the ropes and sort of absorbing the ethos of the outdoors from the older and more experienced members of that community. You don't have to do that anymore, do you? I mean, you can watch YouTube videos of Dangerous Bob climbing
Yes, you can.
death-defying stuff
Yeah.
and go and do it yourself, thinking that, well, if Dangerous Bob can do it, so can I.
So can I. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
Dangerous Bob hasn't got a clue what Dangerous Bob is doing. It's hard to know as a beginner what's legitimate and what's self-appointed.
well, that's true. But mind you, I'm not talking about when I started climbing as being a golden era, because looking back on some of the belay
I'm sure there were
techniques,
real Dangerous Bobs out there as well, even then.
there were, yeah. I'm thinking of some of the dodgy belays I saw set up,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I didn't know were dodgy at the time. But there you go. But
Mm,
I'm still here, fortunately. And
mm.
one of the changes I sort of noticed, going back to bothies a bit, I think women are beginning to go into bothies a lot more independently than they used to, and I think they're finding information and community through the internet, really. So I suppose it's opening up. I would hope in some ways, and well, women are a minority, but there are minority groups out there who
Mm.
think it's difficult to access the outdoors. Do you think that the internet might have a role in doing that?
Oh God, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there are Facebook groups. There's one I follow called Black Scottish Adventurers, which does what it says on the tin. And before the internet, how would that have happened?
Well,
So
exactly. Yeah.
so I think just the easy availability of inspiration as well as hard information is one of the things to celebrate about everyone
Yeah.
being online.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I suppose if you see someone who looks like you doing something, then you think, well, maybe I could do that.
Well, exactly. If you're not seeing representation of people like you, as it were,
Yeah.
in the outdoors, then it'd be easy to think, well, that's not for me,
Yeah.
or even just to never even think about it at all,
Yeah.
as an option. But obviously, the hills are for everyone, and I think they're a better place. The more of society is out there, the better it is, as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, I don't want to be fighting through crowds on every hill, but what
No.
I mean is the more people from all walks of life who feel that they're at home in the great outdoors, the better.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that as many people do get out. I know it can be a bit irksome sometimes when you see a procession going up a hill, But ultimately, we have to protect our outdoors.
Yes,
It
yeah.
has threats, and you can't expect someone to protect something they don't value, and they won't value
Mm.
it unless they've been out there and experienced it and found purpose in it for themselves, really.
Yeah, spot on, John. I mean, that's exactly it. So yes, the greater footfall has an impact in itself, but I think the bigger picture is that, as you say, the more people who experience wild nature for themselves and the rewards of being out there, the more people will speak up for looking after it.
So how have you found the, say, UK climbing or UK hill walking? How do you think it's changed? Or what sort of trends do you see?
That's a big question. I mean, I guess like the wider outdoor community, over time we have seen greater representation of women, greater representation of minority groups within the outdoors. It's a hard one to answer, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, you come in for the hard questions.
I do.
Anything,
Yeah.
well, anything surprised you in what you've seen in terms of how it's changed? Because the internet is kind of like an animal we've released,
Mhm.
and we don't really control it, and we don't really understand it, really. It's always doing things that you don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm always slightly bemused about is the sort of the group aspect of the internet when sort of the meme aspect when it comes to popular Instagram sites, where suddenly everyone's going to Glencoe or
Yeah.
the fairy pools. I've mentioned them already. That's an obvious example, but there are others where a particular location will just suddenly, and for no apparent reason inherent to itself, that it's no better or worse than thousands of other places that are equally easy to get to. But for some reason, there's a sort of fad thing where a particular place becomes this center of
Yeah.
gravity. Everyone wants to take the photo in the same place or camp in the same spot,
I
swim
suppose,
in,
yes, I
in
suppose
that
you're right. I mean,
particular pool or whatever. We've always been group animals, haven't we?
I
So
think it is. You're right. It's human nature to follow others, but I think perhaps you sort of hit on. I think what the internet has a unique power to do. A particular bothy can go viral for no
yeah,
particular reason, and you suddenly find these places are really popular. little bothies I can think of where you could go and there was hardly anybody there, and suddenly the world and his wife is there. But the good thing is, obviously, that what I experience is that they're proper for a while, and
Yeah,
then this internet animal that we've created gets bored with it and moves on to something else.
I guess that's right. Yeah, so the sort of particular place being swamped, it's not a permanent thing.
Usually not, no.
Usually not. And for every one place that seems too busy, there'll be hundreds that really aren't. I mean,
Yeah.
living where we both do, we're quite privileged to have the whole of the Highlands on our doorstep. I can just be off into the woods out the back of my house, and if I don't go on the popular mountain bike trails, I won't see anyone.
You won't see anybody.
You
No,
know,
that's
and I
quite
live
right.
right on the edge of civilization, not like right in the wilds.
It's
Disappear
like
off.
what's happened with the NC 500, which is
Mm,
which is a driving route around the if you like around the coast of northern Scotland. That's become incredibly popular, and
yeah,
it covers a huge area. And if you go up into Sutherland, where the NC 500, if you like, goes round the periphery, you go in the
mm,
centre of that area, and there is nobody there.
absolutely. Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it,
You know, I guess we all do it. I mean, I walked the Cape Wrath Trail last year, and
sure.
I pretty much stuck to the one of the recommended routes that happened to be on the map. But I know for a fact that if I was to walk for 10 minutes in any direction at 90 degrees to that, I'd be completely on my own. We're all following certain paths, aren't we?
That's right. That's
And it's very
right.
much so with the Munros as well. You know,
Yeah.
you get the popular route, the obvious easy line to the
Sure.
peak, which will feature in all the guidebooks and probably on UK Hill Walking and Walk Highlands and wherever else. But you can come up the backside of that Munro and you're not going to see anybody.
No, that's right. That's right. I mean, I think the access to information about places has to be one of the great, for example, climbing conditions in winter, or what I think
Mm.
is also pretty brilliant is you can now get a forecast on how bad the midges are, which
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I think is absolutely invaluable. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I must admit I do tailor my plans a little bit to do with the midge forecast as well as the avalanche forecast. I see them as a sort of not
Yeah,
equally serious, obviously, but
I
there's an
think if you
element. But
actually,
I mean, that ready availability of proper information is
it's really
is
useful. Yeah,
is
yeah.
amazing, isn't it? You know, I remember
Oh God, yeah, definitely.
print out weather forecasts where you'd be staying in a youth hostel or something, and you'd wait for the office to print up that day's weather
That's
forecast.
right.
Well, now
That's
we're
right.
on our phones, and we're getting this all in real time, aren't we?
That's it.
And the quality of the information available with, say, Scottish Avalanche Information Service or MWIS, you know, it's brilliant. Really, you can get you can get a summit forecast for a particular hill.
Yes, that's right. It's
You know,
amazing, and you could never have done that without without the power of the internet. I mean, we were
no, it's obviously they're all just forecasts, and you can go there
yeah,
and
yeah, you can
they could
yeah,
be wrong on the
absolutely.
day, but you know, at least you're going informed by the computer models and these experienced forecasters and avalanche experts and whoever else behind the scenes actually
Yeah,
building this solid information for people. I mean, that's I think that's been transformative
it
to my
has. I think
sense
that's true,
of
and
being informed in the hills, and so especially in winter where you know you really want all the
absolutely.
information you can get
Yeah,
for
and
safety.
that has to have assisted safety. You know, it has to make things safer. And certainly, if there's an avalanche forecast and a midge forecast, I think if I had to choose between the midges and the avalanche, I think I'd go for the avalanche every time. You know.
It's a tough call. It's a tough
It
call.
is a tough call, yeah. Listen, it's been fascinating talking to you. We're almost out of time now, so I just want to say thanks very much for coming along on the show, and I wish you all the very best with your virtual world.
Oh, well, thank you, John. It's been a pleasure. It's actually really interesting to take a step back and actually think about what we do because
Brilliant.
obviously, like everyone, we're just in it
We're
doing our
just
day
in it
job.
and up to it.
So
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
having the chance to talk about this has been really good.
Thanks very much for coming on the show, and all the best. Take care.
Thank you. See you on the hill sometime, John.